Are you ready for another journey into the circle? This episode of In the Circle is brought to you by Together We Rise, your educators in financial services and concepts. For information on future meetings, email tb@talisabrowncompany.com. Welcome to In the Circle. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you, Candice. Thank you for having me.
Where in Canada are you? Give us an idea of your location.
Okay, I'm in Hamilton. So if you've ever heard of Niagara Falls, I am neighboring that city, so about maybe half an hour from Niagara Falls.
During this single ladies session that we're going through, we're speaking with, and I've already spoken with someone from the U.S. So I'm pretty excited to be able to speak to you and get a Canadian perspective. Just so our audience can get to know you better, what's your age group? I think you're in your 30s. Are you in your mid, upper, lower? What's your age group?
I'm going to say later 30s.
Later 30s. Okay.
30s.
So with you being in your later 30s, I would expect that you've been in relationships and now you're single, correct?
Correct. That's right.
All right. So I'm going to dig into your business a little bit. Tell me about those relationships, because something or some things must have happened for you to now be single in your later 30s.
Well, I think the first thing, Candice, is a misconception that our life is narrated based on other people's life, that we have to be married and settle down with children at 36 or at my age or even older. I think that's the first narrative we have to get rid of, and we have to chart our own courses. So I think that's one myth I'd like to debunk, is that, we have to get rid of that. Oh, my life has to go a certain way at a certain age and stage. We all have different paths. So I think why I'm single now is because it is a time to be. And I think that is my journey. There has been many things that have led me through different relationships, and each of those have taught me something significant and absolutely invaluable. More importantly, they have taught me about myself. And I think that's what relationships are for. They are meant to teach you more about yourself as opposed to the other person. Oftentimes we get hung up on what the other person may or may not be doing and why we may or may not be happy with that person. And the whole focus is looking at that person and nitpicking about what you want them to be and how you want them to be. And the lesson really is, who are you? What are your boundaries? What are you okay with? And what are you not okay with? And I think that it is a lifetime journey in figuring out what are the best things for you. And sometimes that includes people and situations. And so to your question, why am I single at 36? It's because I think that it is a life journey. Does have its other challenges. I think those that I've listed are my path. But other than that, it has been a little heavy on the selection deficit.
There's a selection deficit. I like that term, selection deficit. So if I'm to interpret that, are you saying, one, there's a shortage of men, or two, there's a shortage of good men, or three, you've given up trying to find the right person? Or let me clarify, because it sounds as if, within your description a minute ago, I was wondering if I should ask you, are you looking? Are you interested in finding a partner? Because it sounds like you're really investing in yourself right now. So answer that question first. It sounds like you're investing in yourself. What are the things that you're doing right now that you're single to have given that answer? And then secondly, explain the deficit that you're talking about.
Okay, so I think yeah, I think I'll answer not in the same order of the question, but I think the deficit. So there are not a lot of um Black Canadian or American or males that I would say desirable. Not because I haven't met them. I don't often find them with similar values. I find that values are sometimes confusing. And so that's my issue. When I say deficit, I'm having a hard time connecting with those in my culture and finding similar values and similar grounds to build a relationship with. In terms of focusing on myself, I've definitely been doing that because, as I said before, the focus was all about looking for somebody else to come into your life and be what you want them to be. And oftentimes that comes from a place of feeling like there's a hole or there's something missing. And oftentimes we look for people to fill those voids. So, yes, there is a deficit of selection, in my opinion. But a part of that also was that, it is very possible while you're looking to become attached to the wrong person that you're not looking for. And that's
Mm,
because you may or may not identify the things that you're attracting consciously or unconsciously. And so I realized that, yes, there may not be that many options, but I feel like if I look at this at a different way, not focus on the deficit and not worry about the struggles I'm facing, being young, being in the corporate world, being in the entertainment industry, doing so many things, being a single parent, being a female, and then now in the digital world, dating, it has its many challenges. And so sometimes it can get disheartening and discouraging dating because again it's very hard in today's world to find quality people. It's easy to make your assumptions about who people are on the internet, on social media, and that's been, I feel, a catalyst to why we are interacting more because everybody looks appealing, but there's more to be
mm.
said. Yes, there's more to
Yeah,
be said
yeah.
to getting to know the person, getting to find the layers. And also I feel that appreciation for people has been devalued. The things that are substantial that back in the day or when I was growing up that was taught was valuable, such as integrity and honesty and substance and working hard and making sure you're providing for your children and for the next generation and education and respect. Those things don't seem to be at the top of the priority list for a lot of people who are dating nowadays. People want to be
Mm.
famous, people want to be seen, people want to look rich, people, people want.
Have the fake rich.
That's right. People want to do many other different things. And so when you come with a different perspective on what you're looking for in a relationship, sometimes that's hard because the values are not lining up with the people you're meeting. And so that means that it's going to take you longer to find that quality, to find that person that you are looking for. And so the journey I'm on right now is that in the meantime, while I'm looking, is not to be disheartened, not to choose to live unhappily, but to
Hmm.
choose, yes, to choose to fill my time and fill myself with the love and care that I desire from a partner. And once you begin to fill yourself with the love, desire, and care that you need for yourself, you become less needy, less desperate, less needy, less wanting a partner. Because again, as I said before, we have to remove those myths of I'm 36 or I'm 35 or 37 or I'm past 30 and I should have been married. Those thoughts cause you to be depressed. They cause you to compare
Hmm.
yourselves to people. They cause many internal dysfunctions. And so, what
Yeah.
we need to do is refocus on ourselves and where we are. Because, again, Candice, all our paths are different. We come from different backgrounds. We've had different relationships with our parents and families. We've been around different cultures, and especially if you've migrated to other parts of the world, you're integrating, you're learning, and you're growing. And so we're not all from the same spaces and from the same places. And so each of us have to go through whatever journey it is in life that we need to take to grow through those pains of trauma and childhood, which normally occurs in relationships. And these sometimes only are visible to us in relationships. And it's
Yes.
unfortunate, right?
Yes, it is. It is unfortunate, and it's interesting because the one of the other ladies that I interviewed, she is in her late 40s. She's probably 10 years older than you, and she's having some of the same challenges that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think the difference is her kids are older and independent
Mm-hmm.
compared to you. I'm sure you have a child, you said you're a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
that is dependent on you.
Correct.
And I feel that you probably would have to be more, you'd have to scrutinize the process a little more before bringing someone into your life. How does that add, does that, provide added challenges you
Yes.
you find because you do have a child that's dependent on you that's still living with you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna be very honest and say that I've I have felt that moment of anxiety where I'm like, oh my God, I can't, make the time to go on this date, or I have to cancel on somebody, or have to decline this invite because of my responsibilities as a parent, and also feeling anxious of the person, of being fearful that, oh my God, they may not want to invest further in me because I have responsibilities, right? So those things are
Yes.
very real, and they do cross your mind. And yes, it does make it challenging. Of course, I think, yes, sometimes the options are fewer because you don't have the availability as much, right? But it doesn't last forever because your children will go through stages. But I think
Hmm.
at the end of the day, Candice, is that, um, sometimes I feel that people want to avoid being single, right? That the aim is never to be single, that singleness means it's bad. Things are bad, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Especially nowadays into 2020 and this today's everyone wants to be bait up, and if you're not bait up, and that's another issue I find is if you're not bait up, something is wrong with you. If you don't have someone in your
Hmm.
arm, and you're not looking at the best, you're not balling, or your life isn't going well, and that is very unfortunate. That is really unfortunate, I find.
Hmm.
Yes, I find that very unfortunate that we've now um looked at people as accessories
Yes.
versus added value to our lives, where I would rather, Candice, have someone who adds value to my life, who uplifts me, makes me want to be a better person, than someone who is an accessory that makes me look good or might look good beside me, but never actually
Hmm.
creates a space for safeness and value. And that, I think, is what we need to focus on more. And it doesn't mean that if you don't, I mean, yes, I do want to be in a relationship. I do look forward to having one. But I am more focused on making sure that I'm in the best place, that when one comes around, I am ready, that I'm not toxic, that I've learned all the lessons that all the relationships I've had before now have taught me, right? That I've maximized all those lessons and everything, and then I'm trying to make myself into a better person, and to be
Hmm.
more whole and happy on my own first, so that I don't depend on my partner to fulfill me and make me happy.
And to make you
That's
happy.
right.
But I can hear, I hear you. I hear you completely, and I hear you about the accessory. But the accessory alleviates loneliness as well. Is that is that a fair statement for
Absolutely.
me to make?
I would say yes and no, Candice. I say yes because on a surface level. So here's the thing, in my opinion, and what I've experienced, having somebody around for superficial reasons is
Mm-hmm.
temporary and not very fulfilling. And so people will continue to do those things because it suits a very temporary and not very fulfilling purpose. But the need to be fulfilled still remains there. So what ends up happening is that the person is not living authentically, right? That creates
No, yeah.
harm, self doubt, and confusion about who you truly are, because here you are living a life that that says this is what you want, but really what you need is something to be connected with, something that is
Mm-hmm.
satisfying, that fulfills
Yeah.
you, make you a better person. But we understand the pressures of the external world. We have to look a certain way, especially for men. I
Yeah.
mean, you're not a real man
Mm.
if you don't have a woman or two, five women on your arm, right? So it's that pressure to have that accessory. And it's because, yes, we were taught, he that finds a wife finds a good thing, right? And this is
But this sounds like they're trying to find wives and good things.
exactly.
I'd love to get your opinion on that because when we chatted with our single, person in her 40s, she said someone tried to pick her up. I don't know if that's the right term these days.
It is.
I just aged myself. But then when she connected, she has learned to ask, "Are you single? Are you in a relationship?" Because the response is typically yes. And I was saying, they're that honest. They tell you that they're in a relationship. And she said, yes. And it seems as if, 20 years ago, where people would hide it, now it's like, yes, I'm in a relationship. And she's wondering if people are settling and being okay with sharing, or, women in particular is okay with sharing their man. She's like, I don't get where that's coming
Right.
from.
Well, you know what? Times have changed, Candice, and unfortunately, we aren't dating the guys our parents raised us for. Our parents raised us for the
Mm.
men that open the doors.
Okay, hold up. That almost sounds like some preaching right there. You're gonna have to pull back, right? And you're gonna have to say that again. Say it again. That is such a solid statement right there. Repeat what you
Yes, we
just
are
said.
not dating the guys our parents prepared us for. We are not
Mm,
dating
mm,
the
mm,
guys that
mm.
open the doors and cater and takes care for women. And we're not dating those old-fashioned guys anymore. Those guys don't longer exist.
So what happened then?
I think
What
time
happened? Did
happened.
our parents raise us? I mean, I'm wondering, did the parents raise the girls to the expectation? Is it too high? And did they not raise the men to? There seemed to be a
Mhm.
disconnect that's happening there with how the ladies are perceiving the relationship to be compared to the men. What
You know
happened?
what it is, Candice? In my opinion, I think that it's simpler, and the answer is time. Over time, values change. For example, look at the era we're in now. Look at the things that people are valuing. I mean, back in the day, people are ostracized. People like Jackson, and other celebrities for plastic surgery, and they were talked about. Nowadays, if you're not undergoing the knife, you're not hot, you're not you know what I mean. It's very different. Back in the day, it was skinny slim that was in countries. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's a buxom ladies with a small tiny waist and fuller bodies. And so you'll find that over time cultures change and what's acceptable socially has changed. And I think that's really what has happened over time. Back in the day when my grandmother and her grandmother were raised, I'm sure they can look at me now and say, "Oh wow, you're doing things as a woman we would never, thought to have done at that time."
Yes.
And so our roles as females and as men has changed. Women are now doing things that we weren't allowed to do before. We are CEOs, we are waymakers, we're trailblazers. We're speaking, we're doing more than we traditionally did. I think we've evolved as people, and I think we're amazing creatures. So when we come out real strong and we shine. And I think that what has happened though is that we unfortunately did not equip our men on how to evolve with us. So the men were used to,
That I think
yeah,
is the case. The women are evolving, but the men are either evolving slower or they're remaining
yeah,
stagnant. Or, I mean, for just speaking with you, you have a very clear idea of what you want and your journey. You have a very clear idea about that. And I'm wondering if, especially the more mature you get, it's probably more difficult for a man to come in and be able to absorb that or complement that. I don't know. I don't know if it's an intimidation. I don't know if it's an intimidation process where the men are still, okay, I am the man, hear me roar, and then the women are like, what? What are you talking about? I am doing my
Rory,
own.
Rory.
I'm the lioness. I'm the one that kill and bring it in, and so I am wondering if that is the case, if there's a level of
Yes.
intimidation, or are the women to blame? Are the women to blame in some of the cases, the way in which we approach things? Because men have different needs, men's egos are different. So I don't know. I don't know what your thought is
Yeah, no,
about that.
those are very good questions to pose. And I think it's so multifaceted. So I think if you recall, the last few decades, there's been strong push on women in Africa, women all over the world, from a systematic place to personal spaces and to political spaces, right? And then, like I was saying before, our men don't seem to have evolved. And perhaps, Candice, no one saw the change. No one could predict how the changes economically would
Mm-hmm.
affect our social lives, our home lives, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
so now I think we're dealing with the fallout, right? I think now they're like, okay, wow. So here is, how many years later past the industrialized age before women couldn't work. And we're doing, like you said,
Yeah.
all those things, hunting and delivering to the table. And it is possible that men are feeling intimidation. I've experienced that. I've questioned if I've been rejected because people have feel intimidated. I've known some of the feelings that they feel is intimidation. In my opinion, like strong feelings and feedback, then you can tell, okay, they're possibly intimidated. But you know what? That is something that I kind of accept as collateral damage for being who I am.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody or I'm looking for a male, so if a suitor was supposed to come by and say, hey, Talisa, I'd like to date you, and this is what it is. I'm not here right now. I'm not at this level. I'm not where you are, or I'm not where Alex or Sam is, but here I am, and this is what I have to work with, right? Whether he does so informally, or
Mm-hmm.
whether I recognize that on my own, I think that is a more honest approach. So be authentic in who you are, right? Be authentic and have the right tools and the right
Yeah.
materials, right? And really and truly, it's about the relationship you want, Candice, because no relationship is perfect. I might be the kind of girl who's happy to take care of my man, right? He might be he
That
might be
is,
the kind of man
yeah,
who's happy to let me take care of him,
exactly.
and it works for our relationship.
And it has to be agreed upon in that relationship, and that is a great point as well, because I don't think sometimes people think of it that way, or if it's
Hmm.
happening, people are also scrutinizing it. It's like
Yeah,
couples that are out there where the male decide, okay, I'm going to be the
yeah.
one to stay home with the kids because the woman
Hmm.
makes more money. And he's years ago he would be looked upon, a whole lot differently than now. And even now it still has that
It
negative
does.
connotation to it. We are going to continue this conversation with Talisa as we come back from the break. At Bridge Tech Group, they understand social media can be daunting. Let them guide you through the maze and turn those social platforms into revenue generators. You can find them at bridgetechgroup.com. Well, hello in the circle, friends. Welcome back. Welcome back. We're in conversation with Talisa, and Talisa is a single female in Canada. To continue our discussion, you touched on how people were raised, and how women, they're not men out there that can really match up with how women were raised in your time in your family. How are you raising your child? Do you have a male, female, and how are you raising your child to be prepared for some kind
Yeah,
of
that's a
partnership in
really
the
good
future?
question, Candice. And I think that's really important for us to recognize, right? Especially for us females who are struggling with finding the right people. So I have a 10-year-old son, and he we are a single family home, so he does not have his father involved in his life. And I do not make that a taboo subject in our household. So the first thing I do is I normalize us talking about it. I normalize the absence. That's number one. And
Hmm.
what I have done is
Very
says
good. Yeah.
I have said, look, I want you to understand this. This is not okay what's happening. It's not okay that your father is not around. This is not okay. This isn't, it's normal, and it can be normal because not every child grows up with a parent, but this is not okay. And I have to teach him now. I have to now, every day in my everyday life, teach him what being a man, or I can't teach him to be a man, but teach him what a good person or a good parent looks like. And I do that by modeling myself. So
Yeah.
I approach him and I help him to understand certain things. So I explain to him things that say, hey, you know what? This is what happened, and this is how it's supposed to be. I'm also not afraid of retracting any mistakes I've made or apologizing, because then we want to create children that are aware. And I think the best thing we can help our children do is to become aware. When you are aware of yourself, you become aware of other people's emotions. And as people, we need to tune in more to what people are asking for, or what it is that they need from us. And that is what who we are as parents. And if
Mm-hmm.
we are able to relate more and be more aware of our children's needs, we can respond. For example, you know, growing up, children that had behavioral issues, maybe they were acting out, were given the belt, were given punishment, right? We're in a different time where
Yes.
we realize that, okay, if my son is showing some behavior that's not desirable, then I have an opportunity to say, hey, is there something I can do? Is there something that's bothering you? How can we help you to overcome these obstacles? And what that teaches me, Candice, is if you begin to build a whole child and teach them how to become whole and grounded, I don't really think you have to focus so much on who they are as a man, because you're just trying to build good people. So I teach him how to be
Yes.
good, teach him how to be responsible. I teach him how to reach out in families, and I feel like that is a struggle wherein our men has been disconnected from the children in the homes. They've been disconnected from their roles as parents, and I feel like we have to reintroduce that. What does that look like now in 2020? Well, it looks like conversations versus physically hitting or impacting someone. It looks like counseling sessions versus ignoring someone. It looks like voicing the elephant in the
Yeah.
room so that the child is released from the pressure of that conversation not happening, so that they know it's okay, right? That's my approach to it, Candice. I don't necessarily take a male or female approach to it, because I've accepted that I cannot be everything he needs. He needs two parents, I'm only one. But the other part of that is I have made an effort to have some strong males in his life that can look up to, that he can respect, and
Yes.
when I need assistance to reinforce some points, that I can reach out to these people. So those are the kind of things that I put into place to help him become a better person, and hopefully a better parent and a better man.
That sounds like, for anyone out there that's listening, in particularly females, single with a child or children, goodness, I don't even know how any single parent do what they do. But I think that is very solid advice. And I know it makes it a little more challenging for you as a female having a son. I think it would be, and anyone out there that's single and their child is female, leave a message on the podcast and let me know. But I think it's harder for a female to raise a man, and similarly, I think it's hard for a single man to raise a female. It's just, I think that would be the case. But again, if I'm wrong, I'd love to take anyone's
Yes.
input on that. So Talisa, if you were to talk to your 20-year-old self now, what would you say
I
to her?
would say believe in yourself more and go harder, because everything you want is exactly there. I would have believed in myself more. I would have believed, put more trust and more faith in myself. In terms of dating, I would have just said love myself more. I would have said find ways to love yourself, develop ways to give to yourself, accept yourself. You're enough. You're beautiful. Um, you have your future is brighter than your past.
Yes. Yes. I think that's the case though as we mature. It's like we wish we had
Hmm.
the youth with the wisdom, but unfortunately it doesn't necessarily come in that format and we're able to look back and say, if I had that wisdom then, unless we had a strong mentor, unless we had on when, and
Hmm.
also if we wanted to listen, when we're young, we just feel like we
Yeah.
know everything. So what are you looking for in a partner?
That is such a loaded question. Uh, and so I'm gonna give you the advice that I've read and heard from a few people. Whenever I get asked a question on dates or from potential boyfriends, I shy away from specifics. So
Well, this is not a
I know
potential boyfriend asking this. Well, I guess we have to be careful because a
it's
potential
possible. No, it's
boyfriend could
possible.
be listening to this
It's possible.
podcast. So,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah, we don't want to put an
no,
X
no,
next
I
to
can do
anyone.
this.
So, okay,
No, I can.
I'll have you try to
No, no, no. I can do this. No,
dress
don't.
up
No,
the
no, Kenneth,
answer.
it's fine. I was just making a joke that. So the reason why we don't give specifics is that we don't want people taking our answers and then impersonating those characteristics to become what you need them to be temporarily. So what we do say is,
Ah,
what we do
yeah.
say is, or what I like to put out there is, I look for someone with integrity, with honesty, with good character. So we start there because I'm really looking to date somebody, and only through getting to know you will I know if I want to, continue a long-term relationship with you or not. But to begin to date you, I'm looking for someone who's solid,
Hmm.
someone who knows who they are more, more than they don't, and because everyone's on a path of self-discovery, but solid, integrity, and absolutely ambitious. So we'll start there for dating. So that's what I'm looking for.
Hmm. So they need to be ambitious as well. So let me throw something in there. They're ambitious, but they're
I'm
making less
not
than you.
um I'm
Would you
not worried
consider that?
about dollars, Candice, in terms of I've dated men that made more than me. I've dated men that have made less than me, and I've
Hmm.
never the relationship has never ended because they made less. So that was never an issue for me. It could be more. I could
Wow.
go up to
Okay.
10 years older,
Okay.
but ideally no more than 7 years.
But I guess in the 30s, it's not too bad,
Oh,
you can
oh,
go a little
right,
older
exactly,
and see how that
exactly. I
works.
think she's right, Candice. I think she's right. I think she's right. That's right.
She's
That's right.
thinking it through. Oh my goodness. Um, so there must be some positives, and I know you've listed some already, about being single. Because it's challenging, as you said, especially having a child. But what are like a couple
Oh yeah, I have a
positives
few.
that you
I
could
have a
pull out,
few. Oh yeah.
for being single? Okay, so
Um.
line them out, line them out. Make the people in a relationship
Well,
jealous.
for one, you get so much more time to spend on yourself and the things that you like to do, and you end up fulfilling more of what you want to do because then it's just your focus. With a partner and family, things have to change. So I think that's number one. Number two, you go faster. So they say you go, you do more with more people, but you go faster
Hmm.
alone.
Because is it because you're able to
Yes,
just make the
yes,
decision? You don't have
yes. You don't
to,
have to contend with opinions. You
connect
don't
with
have to contend
anyone.
with setbacks.
Hmm.
And so you just go charging for it. What else? Just the freedom, I think, to do more. Just I think that's is really the big ones, the freedom to do more, to be able to focus on yourself and more options. You have way more options, just options to do everything, right? And less
Ah.
expensive. Did you mention that? Because it's just
How
you,
is it less
right? When you have
expensive?
to deal with a second, listen, sometimes the marriage thing isn't cheaper, you know. It's not always cheaper. It's not always cheaper.
Well, there's
Well,
another
there's another
income
mouth
that
to
should be
feed. So
coming
in my
in.
opinion, it's another
So
mouth to feed.
I don't know.
That's right, right? Especially Candice, especially if one makes
A
more
lot
than
of
the
things
other,
to
it's a
do.
liability. I'm not saying in my case, and that's I'm not saying in
Oh
my
my
case. And
goodness,
let
that
me just
is
put it out there like that.
yes,
I
yes.
appreciate an unequal exchange and the unequal in my favor. Just to put it out there.
For a female in her almost mid 30s, what advice would you give to another female around the same age on similar path as you that is struggling
Yeah.
with
Um,
living the single life?
my focus, Candice, again, it is self, like you mentioned on the call. And I know it sounds counterintuitive to say to focus on yourself if you're looking for somebody else, if you're looking for a partner. But the reason why I say to focus on yourself is because once you're able to get into that place where you are enjoying your own life, you're enjoying your own company, you're pretty content with what it is that you're doing, that will allow you to open up yourself to better prospects. And so, what I would say to that person is love yourself more. Find new ways to give yourself love. Learn ways that you like to receive love and practice that. Practice filling your cup,
Mhm.
practice giving yourself,
Mhm.
and not focus on finding someone because the goal isn't to find someone. You know, we're so fixated on that. The goal is to be as much as you can of yourself
Yeah.
so that when the time is right for you and that person comes along again, that it's a flourishing connection, that you're not codependent, that you're not still suffering from the traumas of your childhood, that you're not reaching out, you're not being desperate to hang on to somebody because you are afraid of being alone, causing toxicity, causing hurt and more trauma. So if you're like me and you are looking for love, just know that you already have it and everything that you need is inside of you. And I know that it sounds again counterintuitive, but once you begin to give
Mhm.
more, you know, at certain points we do feel that need to give love as well. You know, as being single, we have that urge to give love, and that can hurt as
Yeah.
much as not receiving love. Having it so much that you want to give it and not being able to express that to somebody is also as hurtful. But sometimes when you, not sometimes, oftentimes when you're
Mhm.
feeling deeply lonely and you're feeling that need to give the love to somebody, we just need to turn our minds to ourselves and wonder what part of us needs love? What part of us is crying out for the love that we're trying to give somebody? And I can
Ah,
guarantee you, your cup needs to be full.
yeah.
Your cup needs to have a little bit more love. And so it is not okay to stay in a state of worry and
Mhm.
anxiety and worrying when the next when you're gonna meet somebody else and worrying if the person's gonna stay. That is not healthy. And if we catch ourselves being that mental state where we're worrying so much about who's going to stay around and stick around, then we are not worrying enough about what's inside of us that we need to release, we need to let go, we need to heal from, so that we don't become the codependent, so we don't become unhealthy for ourselves and for other people. Because we should be happy with somebody or without somebody.
Yes, yes, that is very, very good advice. So, what do you want your married friends to understand
Um,
about being single?
my friends are pretty understanding and they're pretty supportive. Um, you know, recognizing the single people in our group,
Mhm.
and we also are very supportive to each other. And I think that's probably the number one thing to know is that your single friends, your single partners, partner, whether they be people you work with, whoever they are, we need support, and we may not always ask for it. We may not always be able to show up the way that you guys show up with people, with multiple people in the homes. We may not be able to afford the things that you guys are able to afford. We may not be able to do as much. And so sometimes it's understanding and support that we need in the journey. And that's just staying in touch, asking questions, do you need help? Can I offer some assistance here or there, especially if they're older single people, right? Like, I'm a younger person, but I always imagine if I were older, and lived alone, and so I think it's just supporting the single women, single men community, just reaching out and just seeing if there is anything you can share with them from a family perspective, help them to feel included as well, because it's, holidays and Christmases are tough. And I would just say, just reach out to them, let them know that they're included and that they are needed.
Thank you, Talisa, for sharing your story as a single female living in Canada. I am sure the information you provided will help someone. So thanks again. Thank you for joining us in The Circle. Follow our podcast for more real life, real talk. You can also find us on Facebook at In the Circle Podcast.